Hey, how's everybody doing? It's been a little while since I've put out any content on a podcast. I've had a few health things going on, but I've rebounded. And that's the point to life, is trying to stand. It doesn't matter how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep getting hit and still stand the fuck up. There's a lot of people out there like that, but there's also a lot of people who look for excuses or can't stand on their feet or don't know how to stand on their feet. And a lot of it, to me, by my research, is how our programmed society has made everybody become. We used to be the most powerful country on earth. We were the so-called beacon of freedom. But over the last 150 years, our freedom has diminished. And the only people that can really be blamed for it is ourselves and the people before us, for being deceived and letting these little tiny infinitesimal rights being absorbed and taken away ever so slightly that most people never even see it. It never ceases to amaze me how many people have never just went on congress.gov and actually looked at the bills and acts that have either passed or that are up to be voted for. Most people have no idea or no clue and don't care. But until everybody realizes your entire life is pretty much dictated by politics and government, we can never address anything. Only a well-informed population can get anything done or stop something that is about to be done. But how did we get here today? Where jobs are diminishing, trades are falling apart, the currency we use that is basically no different than monopoly money out of the fucking card game has completely lost its purchasing power. And we're still letting it happen. If you pay attention to the debt clock, just our debt clock, and realize we're over 30-something trillion dollars in debt, that will never ever be repaid, and it can never be repaid. That's the point. Where do they even get this money from to so-called borrow? And remember, in one of the amendments to the Constitution, it says you're not allowed to question the debt. It's kind of funny, isn't it? If this is a free country, why are you not allowed to question the debt? That's because we are a debt-based society. Back when this country was founded, money was just a commodity. It wasn't everything in life. It was just a way to trade or barter. Now we're in a system of materialism and obsession and addiction to these big fancy houses, the best cars, the most expensive this, clothing, a whole bunch of fucking nonsense that really most people don't need. If the grid was to shut down, lose your internet, lose power, just for a week, everybody goes crazy. Imagine losing it for a month, 6 months. Don't think it can't happen. We have been lied to on the biggest scale of human history. Even what they tell us is history is absolute bullshit. If anybody ever wants to think that these big-ass cathedrals, the pyramids, these temples that were all supposedly built either thousands of years ago or during the so-called Dark Ages, is utter bullshit before even the so-called power tool was invented. What if there was a previous civilization here that we've been lied to about? If you do a little research into the catacombs around the world, where all these bodies and bones are underground, but they're stacked up in all these geometric patterns, almost like a trophy. And they'll tell us that there's millions of people that are in these catacombs throughout the world. But if you look at the so-called population chart back then, there really was not a whole lot of people. Based on my research, it looks like there was a civilization and was somehow wiped out. And everything was rewritten. The technology was taken and hidden from everybody. Until about the 1800s is where all of a sudden all these colleges pop up, these banks, these different government buildings. And if you ever look at it, they're in these older style buildings that are either 100 or over 100 years old, that are built out of stone or block, that we could not fucking do today. And I'm in construction. I've been in it for over 20 years, and I can tell you, beyond the shadow of a doubt, there is no way in fucking hell pyramids, coliseums, these old churches were built with a fucking chisel, without no lights. Where did all the materials come from? Where did they get the skilled tradesmen to do this? What were the construction companies? There's no clue. Nobody has a clue. If you try to look into it, they'll tell you it was made by some Harvey and Son construction, and they just knocked out 2 palaces in 4 years. And then you never hear nothing else about it. Where did they get the water? If they were using donkeys incorporated to get everything there, and horses, where was the food and water coming from to just feed the horses? Where were these blocks being produced, or mortar, or brick, or limestone tramp, or huge marble columns? You have to really think about it. And when they tell you that it was founded, it's right in the word found. They found the buildings. So I don't think it's a coincidence that all these buildings are occupied by either government, banks, or insurance companies. Another subject and concept that we've been lied to about is the idea of outer space. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize we've never been to outer space. We've never been to the moon. Any picture you try to find of the Earth is a computer image. All these so-called images of galaxies and a bunch of stupid, idiotic shit are nothing but cartoons. And they even tell you that. Is the Earth really a globe? Is it a ball whizzing around in a vacuum that spins at almost 1,100 miles per hour, so-called going around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour, while we're chasing the sun at 666,000 miles an hour, and the whole entire galaxy is hurtling through space at over 1 million miles an hour? It's complete lunacy when you actually stop and think about it. Polaris, the North Star, never moves. It is always in the same spot. And they'll want to say it's 1 trillion light years away or so. But does anybody know how long 1 trillion seconds is? You can look it up or guess, but 1 trillion seconds is roughly 31,000 years. 1 trillion seconds is 31,000 years. So when you think of $1 trillion, or something being 1 trillion miles away, so if we could travel at 1 minute per second, or 1 mile per second, it would take 31,000 miles just to go 1 trillion miles. And they say the closest star is maybe 4 trillion miles away. So it would be 120-something thousand years to get there. So when you start thinking of these things and actually putting them together, they do not make sense. They are all philosophical. The Earth is a plane of existence. I have spent over a decade researching into this stuff. It's a very hard concept for people to grasp. People will attack you, throw out ad hominem attacks, call you crazy, but they don't have the ability to even entertain a thought, because everybody has been so brainwashed that, what do you mean? Of course the Earth is a ball. Do you honestly think people are living upside down in Australia? Just think about it. Start doing some research into NASA and all their fakery and trickery and their so-called satellites that are orbiting in outer space. The Earth is an electrical field. The ground holds a negative charge. The air holds a positive charge. And as you get higher and higher, that positive charge increases. If you were to take a drone and fly it up 200 to 300 feet with some very thin copper wire and touch that copper wire, you'll actually get a zap. they are able to use the energy in the upper atmosphere where things can actually float. If you take a look into Operation High Jump with Admiral Byrd in the 50s, Operation Fishbowl, where they were trying to blow up the firmament. I mean, it's even in the 1950s encyclopedias that there is a dome at 13,000 feet at the edge of Antarctica. But it's funny that all these countries came together when we were so-called all not getting along and created the Antarctic Treaty that made it off limits to anybody to claim it or do anything on it. Sure, you can go visit it. They'll take you to a couple little spots called Deception Island or Rothschild Island, and you can go out and venture out on a little tour and check out some penguins and a little fake candy cane South Pole. But if you ever try to do your own voyage out there, you will be turned around or arrested. Nobody has ever circumnavigated north to south. East to west is easy. It works whether you're on a ball or on a level plane earth. But I really think people need to start using their due diligence and start paying attention and educating themselves on how government really works, what money really is, where you really live. Because to me, that is the biggest deception of all of them. If you don't know who you are or where you are, then you're just spinning out of control and you're lost. You need a solid foundation to stand on. But they keep us busy with work and entertainment and TV shows and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. It literally blows my mind. When I woke up and had the eyes to see, back in 2006, it was the first book called Natural Cures, really before the internet really took hold. That book was about how the pharmaceutical industry and food industry all work together to pretty much poison you and then give you these drugs just to treat it that are still poison. And then when you start looking into law and government, actual history, not just the spoon-fed garbage they give you. Take, for instance, just we call kids teenagers. That's a rather new phrase. It was just like, oh, it's just kids, let kids be kids, and until they figure it out. But back in the day, you maybe went to school until you were 12 years old, and then you either became an apprentice or did something else. You were considered a man at that younger age that we so call today. So you can see how dumbed down we have become since the early 1900s, when the Rockefellers and the Tavistock Institute took over the education system and made it a brainwashing system. You ever wonder where the square caps and gowns come from when you graduate school or so-called college? It's a mortar board. That's where they spread cement in masonry. So it's symbolism right in your face, and they are telling you that. But if you don't have the knowledge to understand it, it will never even be a thought on anybody's mind. They're literally telling you and everybody else looking at you that your mind has been cemented and molded by them. A very good book that's called Propaganda. I believe the book was written in 1921 by Edward Bernanke. And he even tells you in there, he was the father of propaganda, which today you can pretty much call public relations. But he said people's tastes, their smell, and their minds are already developed for them before they even come out of the womb. That was such a powerful statement to me. In today's fast-paced world, people are becoming 10-second attention spans where they got to flick through video after video. And if it's anything longer than that, they become impatient. Most people do not have patience to spend 1 hour of reading something of value. But yet we're told we are the best we've ever been. We're the highest in civilized society. But yet men think they're girls and girls think they're men. And we're entertaining these things as if they are real. We have literally let the insane asylum take over. And the fact that it's even being done by government or making laws about it is completely off the proverbial chain. It is a wicked, demonic spirit. I full-heartedly believe it is above mental and physicality, that we are actually in a spiritual war. And there is a very dark presence shadowing over the entire human population. Just wanted to give a short podcast this evening. Give everybody something to think about and maybe dive into. Please leave questions or comments if you'd like me to talk about more of these things on a deeper level, something that you guys might want to hear a little more about. I'm very open to discussion and talking about so many different concepts that a lot of people have no clue about. But I appreciate you guys if you're listening. Have a blessed day and keep going.